Denon just went beast mode with their new AVR-A1H 15.4 channel AV receiver. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasella with Audioholics. I always get excited when there's a new flagship receiver, whether it's from Denon, Yamaha, Marantz, Onkyo, you name it. I love flagships. I grew up in an era of home theater where we had 70 or 80 pound flagship receivers. And this is way before Dolby Atmos. So I used to get really excited checking these things out. I always loved bench testing them because they tend to have the very best parts in them, the most power capability, and all the features you could ever want. So we have a little preview article I put up. As you guys know, Matthew Pose and Brian Kahn from Audioholics visited Massimo Consumer, which is formerly known as Sound United, and they had a little press event, and they talked about all their new products from Denon and Marantz. Now, I'm going to be covering the AVRs, the separates from Marantz, the AV10 and the AMP10 shortly, but we're going to have Matthew Pose check out the new AVR-A1H Denon 15.4 channel receiver. And I want to share this article that we have up here and go over all the details of this product with you. So if you go on the audioholics.com website right now, you will see that this article just dropped. And this is the front panel view of this receiver. So think of it as an 8500 on steroids. It has a couple of more channels, but it also has new processing features that the existing product line does not have. So number one, this is a throwback to me on the 5805. That's always been my all-time favorite receiver of all time. Definitely the best Denon receiver ever made, in my opinion. Thing was a beast. It weighed about 100 pounds. It was 10 channels, and it's just textbook measurements, the best measurements I ever seen in an AVR. I mean, it was as good or better than most separates that I reviewed at the time. That's how good that thing was. So the new AVR-AH1, some cool features it has on it is it's 15 amplified channels, 150 watts times 15, and it has 4 independent subwoofer outputs. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the power of this thing. People are probably wondering down below, well, what does it do with all channels driven? You can't realistically think any receiver that runs on a 15 amp line is going to be able to do rated power with all channels driven. But I can tell you my experience with Denon and Marantz receivers of the past is they have a 70% guarantee. So if the amplifier is rated, let's say at 150 watts like this one is, then they guarantee that this receiver would deliver at least 105 watts with 5 channels driven. Now, in my experience, when I've tested this claim, I've always been able to replicate it with 7 channels driven. So given the fact that this thing has like 25-pound E-core transformer in it, and it's got 2 times 33,000 microfarad power supply capacitors on it, I'm going to venture to say it's safe that this thing will hit the 70% rating with 7 channels driven. And I think it's going to surprise us. I think it's going to be even more capable than that. You know, Denon basically claims that it's the biggest transformer they ever put in a receiver. I'd have to argue that maybe it's the biggest E-core that they've ever used, because the 5805 not only had a toroidal transformer borrowed from the 5803, but it had 2 additional E-cores borrowed from the 2805. And it had twice the capacitance of this receiver. It was a 4 times 33,000 microfarad, 132,000 microfarads total power supply capacitance. I've never seen that in an AV receiver ever again. But this comes really close. This gives you about half that capacitance. So they're giving you, significantly bigger power supply than what's in the 8500. I think the 8500 uses 27,000 microfarad caps and a smaller transformer. So the fact that maybe it's rated the same, maybe the modules still say they're 150 watts, I'm thinking we're going to see more power with a couple of channels driven. We're going to see, especially with forum lows, I just think there's more capability here. And in fact, Denon was showing Matthew Pose this module that's common to all the new Denon receivers now, and it's capable of doing far more than 150 watts. I think he said it was doing 175 watts, both channels driven at 8 ohms, unclipped. So this thing's got some power, and it's definitely going to give you well over 200 watts a channel and 4 ohms. And the nice thing about it, the 4 independent subwoofer outputs, this is another Denon first. In the past, they had, in the 5805, they had 3 subwoofer outputs, which was back then unheard of. Nobody gave you more than 1 or 2 independent. That was awesome. But this one actually has 4 independent subwoofer outputs. They're not just parallel connections. So you're going to have independent delay, independent level for each of those subwoofer outputs. And of course, you're going to be able to do some advanced bass management that Denon is now offering. And we'll talk about that in a second. But looking at the back panel of this, I just want to look over this whole layout here. It's something to really, take a look at and just kind of admire, like, wow, I can't believe an AVR has all these speaker connections, all these preamp outputs, balanced outputs, and a pair of balanced inputs. It's very rare that you get a receiver with balanced inputs. I think the only other exception that I know of offhand are the Yamaha Avantage 6A and 8A models. But the nice thing about this Denon is you could use those XLRs for 4 independent subwoofer outputs, or if you want to use the RCA level, you could reassign those 4 subwoofer outputs, those XLRs, as front, left, center, right. So if you want to get the very best signal connection between the Denon and your external amplifier, you can now use XLRs for your critical front 3 LCRs. So another thing is you look at all these different speaker layouts. I mean, you've got a combination of so many things you can do. I mean, it has provisions to even run 4 sets of height channels, wide channels. Now, there's 2 more connectors here than this thing is capable of amplifying, but that just gives you the ability to switch between different speaker layouts, depending if you're listening to DTS X Pro, or you're listening to Aural 3D, or you're listening to Dolby Atmos. So it's great that they give you this kind of switchability here. Of course, if you're not using all the amplifiers, you can either reassign them for a second zone, or you could use bi-amplification features for your front channels, or you could bypass the amplifiers entirely. You could break the signal connection between the preamplifier and the power amplifier on each channel. So that's new. Again, this is something that we were asking for years, because I found that if you want the best signal integrity, it's really if you can decouple it from the amplifier section, so when you turn the volume up, it doesn't clip and bring that noise back into the preamp. You have the ability now to turn off each of these channels individually. And that's something that we requested, and they listened, and they put it on this model. So I'm really happy to see that. Now, if you can't do the preamp disconnect on these channels, you still probably will get some clean output anyway. I noticed the last generation of Marantz receivers and some of the Denons, they've really done a great job of cleaning up the preamp output section, whether you use the preamp disconnect or you don't. And these things are capable of, I think I measured 4 volts RMS clean out of the preamp outputs on Marantz and on one of the Denon receivers from last year. So you definitely have plenty of drive to use external amplification if you so desire to do. Now, one thing that's missing from this new Denon, as well as the Marantz separates, there's no legacy connections for composite or component video. I'm surprised to see that, actually. I mean, I love to use the Nintendo Wii still. Don't laugh at me. I still have friends over, or my family. We'll play Wii bowling. So now I'm going to have to get a little dongle if I want to use one of these receivers. The Wii is only capable to do component video or composite video. There's no HDMI on that Wii. So that's something just to think about. And now this is what's really cool is they've redesigned all their HDMI boards. I mean, look at the heat sinks on this thing. This thing is built to last. One thing about Denon and Marantz is they have the most rigid HDMI standards when they were designing these products. These products are truly ready for everything imaginable for 8K, for gaming. If you're a gamer, it supports everything that you could ever want and hope for. And that's on every input as well. So that's pretty awesome. Now, the thing I wanted to talk more about was that directional bass thing. So what Denon is doing is, and they're doing this on both models. They're doing this on the Marantz line, and they're doing it on the Denon line. They're having this thing with bass routing. So if you want to have a sub in each corner, front, left, right, back, left, right, if an explosion happens on a left channel, whether it's the left side channel or a left front channel, it's going to direct that bass towards that subwoofer, as opposed to playing it with all 4 subs. But it's also going to give LFE to every subwoofer as well. So I'm a little skeptical about this, and we're going to do more on this topic We're going to have Matthew Pose investigate it when he does his review. Because in reality, the best way to do full modal control in a room is to have all your bass sources, all your subwoofers playing the same exact signal. Well, if you do what they're proposing here with the directional bass, it goes back to that old method of having full range speakers all around and not having a unified bass front to cancel standing waves. So it's something to consider. I think what would be interesting to do is to set it up with directional bass and then set it up without directional bass, just the normal mono mix, and do a comparison. Maybe do it on two different presets on the AVR. So I'm hoping that Matthew Pose can investigate that when he does his review, and we're going to be open-minded and test it out. Of course, it's nice that they even give you this feature. I mean, I don't know of any other AV receiver that's giving you 4 subwoofer outputs independent and also do this kind of bass directionality stuff. So the next thing is to talk about is obviously all Denon and Marantz products support Audyssey. This one supports the fullest version of Audyssey, including PC version. But there also is going to be an upgrade path that costs money to license to get Dirac Live. So that's actually interesting. You're going to have the ability now to have a full Dirac room correction and then a full Audyssey correction. And if you save it on different presets, you can go and compare and see which one you like better. Now, unfortunately, what we learned so far is it's only going to support Dirac Live for now, for this year. Dirac bass control is not currently slated to be supported out of the gate with this product. We hope they can add that in the future. And of course, the new Dirac Live active room treatment is not currently in the plans in the next year or two for Sound United, for Denon and Marantz products to support. So that's about it. I just wanted to show you guys kind of an inside view of this receiver taken apart. You could see that it's got 6 fans in there, very large power supply. Like I said, that transformer is like 25 pounds. It's heavier than some of their entry-level receivers. And it's just incredible build quality. I mean, this is the kind of thing that marks a flagship super receiver of what we used to always gush over, 15 plus years ago. So I have high hopes for this. I hope you guys do as well. I can't wait to test this thing out and to hear how powerful it is. So before I let you go, I want you guys to know that Audiovice is doing a live event this Saturday, February 11th from 12 o'clock to 4 p.m. I'm going to be there. Yours truly. I'm going to be there listening to the speakers, learning about the series, doing the interviews, doing everything I can to cover the product for you guys and give you more details on what I thought about how they sounded. But I would love to meet you guys. Come say hello. Here it is right here in Raleigh, North Carolina from 12 to 4 p.m. And you have a chance to win a 5.1 motion system valued at $5,396. It's a beautiful system. Just check that out. It's basically, they've completely revamped the motion series. Now they have a waveguide on their AMT. They've got upgraded drivers, higher sensitivity. I think the series average is like 92 dB sensitivity. So that means it's going to play loud and be more dynamic. That's awesome. Guys, don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics or ask questions. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.